Pleased to have back here one of my favorite people that I'm so thrilled to be able to call a friend, and for the first time on this program, a Hall of Famer officially from ESPN and their NBA coverage and the terrific Pardon the Interruption, our friend Michael Wilbon. How are you, sir?
Rich, I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. So there's so much going on. My gosh, I'm just going to dive right into it if you don't mind. Did you see what Scottie Pippen had to say on our friend DP's show today?
I just saw it. Luckily, thankfully for you, I was starting a sleep marathon last night when I got back from Clippers Suns, and that was going to mean about 15 hours to catch up on days without it. And so I saw nothing on my own. Thankfully, your producer sent me this. I say thankfully so I can be aware, and I just looked at it and shook my head, and I don't know. I talk to Scottie occasionally, and sometimes, like during previous seasons, it'd be more than occasionally because we would work together on Rachel's show on the Jump, and known Scottie for a long time. I don't have any extra knowledge. I have no special intel on this. I looked at it and went, "What?" Like probably most people did. So I'm just catching up, and I know we're all going to have to react to it and to whatever comes from it, the reactions to the reactions. But yeah, I'm just now seeing it, a half an hour or so ago. So
what were your boots on the ground recollection of the Kukoc and Pippen moment back in the day?
Well, look, it was as dramatic as the NBA can get. I was, at the game. And immediately I didn't realize that Scottie wasn't on the court coming out of that timeout. And,
right.
Then you look, and you're wondering what's going on. It all happens in a flash. And there was no social media, of course, to just dissect it over and over and over again a million times in the next, 48 hours. And it was Scottie's low moment. And it's certainly a moment that I know he hated having to relive during The Last Dance. And I did, communicate with him after that. And I was one of the people who was critical. How could you not be? I also think that, that moment, unfortunately, and I could talk to Scottie about it, that game, that moment, it colored him for a long time. And I came to think, Rich, that it couldn't be the only thing that made us think a certain way about Scottie Pippen, because he did win 6. He didn't win 1. He didn't win 2. He won 6. And Michael never won without him. And Scottie went on to play for a team that should have been in the NBA Finals. The Portland Trail Blazers with a 19-point lead in the fourth quarter of a Game 7 against the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq. And that, I don't know how that winning and getting to the finals is interesting, how that might have changed further the narrative. But I thought we were away from this. I thought we were away from this. I thought I have written publicly, said to Scottie, I'm not going to solely judge you by a worst moment. None of us wants to be judged that way. And his career has too much else in it. The resume is too full. And now I hear this. I don't know what to think yet.
Michael Wilbon here on the Rich Eisen Show. Just for completion for the moment, Pippen has just tweeted out, "I'm just answering the questions y'all asking me. You wanted the headlines, you got them. Dig deeper to find out why I actually said what I said instead of framing your questions to get clicks. It's all love," as with a heart emoji. What do you think that means? Dig deeper to find out.
I do. Here's one thing I learned not to do, Rich. Put too much into answers that come via social media. It's not discussion. It's social media. I don't know what it means. I can't tell you what it means. I can react to who I think Phil Jackson is and was in my experience. And I was not around Phil every day. The people who I will listen to on this will be and care what they say are the people who played for Phil and worked with him. So, I know those men, obviously starting with Michael Jordan, who will be asked. I don't know how he will weigh in, but he will be asked.
Right.
And so many others. Ron Harper, who I know well. I want to hear what Ron Harper has to say. I want to hear what B.J. Armstrong has to say. I want to hear what Steve Kerr and Tony Kukoc. I wouldn't mind. I've been on a golf course a few times with Tony Kukoc, which is a 5-hour fun fest. I would love to have 4 hours or 5 hours of access to Tony today. So I'm not gonna. I don't. I'm not too old and too not of the generation to spend hours, even minutes, trying to figure out what people are saying with emojis and secret phrases that are not meant for me. They're meant for my 13-year-old son. I don't.
Michael,
I can't do that. But I want to hear in order to be able to engage, because we're going to have to. But it won't come. I don't know what all love means. I mean, everybody utters these phrases these days, and it usually means nothing, and you have to get beneath it.
I guess
it is asking the questions, but it's going to be asking the questions of Scottie as well as the men who are on that team.
Right, and so I guess the last one for you on this subject before we go to the here and now, then, Michael Wilbon, is what can you tell me about the Pippen-Jordan relationship? Because it's clearly something that Pippen also said to Dan that the NBA entertainment cameras that picked up the huddle in which Michael was seeming to be absolutely fine, as well as be at the forefront of setting Kerr up for a winning shot that we all know in The Last Dance about, was a setup. It was Jordan knowing that the cameras were there and that he would control it for a documentary. And there just seems to be a lot of confusing statements. But it was all.
Well, they have a complex. They've had a complex relationship. I don't think that's any. We saw that in the documentary, which explains it much more than any, individual statements will. We saw that, and there was a time where they didn't. I don't know that it was ever, in my view, hostile. It was just they are very different people. They had a complex relationship in which Michael. We know from The Last Dance how demanding Michael was of Scottie Pippen, but we know of Steve Kerr. We know those stories now, and I believe I know that some of that, the reliving of that, hurt Scottie. I know that it hurt him. The reliving of these moments that hurt in the beginning. If they were complex and they hurt 30 years ago, then we know what they must feel like 30 years later. They were never the best of friends. I mean, there were people on the team that Michael was closer to, B.J. Armstrong. I mean, there were people on the team that, the irony of Scottie and Kukoc and that whole thing in the Olympics and the Dream Team is that Tony Kukoc and Scottie became very close. And, when you mentioned Scottie to Tony, he always called him Pip, and he'd have a smile on his face. And Scottie became very much his big brother, as I interpret it, from both of them. But these things they're not going to change, right? The relationships, you can't undo the relationships. You can't redo the relationships. There's no mulligan, pun intended, on these relationships. They were complex a year ago when we finished watching The Last Dance, right about now, or maybe a month earlier.
Right.
And so this is what it is. And there was less examination of Phil and the guys. I mean, Michael has told me, to get to Phil for a second, he told me that the three most important men in his life, and I quoted him somewhere doing this in the Washington Post, in live time, that the three most important men in his life were his father, Dean Smith, and Phil Jackson. And in the context, I'd have to go back and get the context. I don't know if the context was, well, it couldn't be solely basketball because his dad was the headliner, and obviously we know that. That comes as no secret. So that relationship maybe was less complex. I don't know that all of us know. Maybe the Chicago beat writers know a ton about Phil's relationship with Scottie other than 1.8 seconds, maybe. Michael
Wilbon here on the Rich Eisen Show. Pardon the interruption, and of course the NBA coverage that we're locked into, with it appearing to be, Michael, is it fair to say we got Suns Bucks on the horizon, to use, I guess, a phrase? Okay.
No, I'm not. No.
You won't do that.
No.
You won't go there.
I mean, I think look, I picked the Suns in 7, and I think the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard are reduced. There's no question about that. It's like the Suns without Chris Paul, with Chris Paul even injured during that Lakers series, or without him for the first 2 games of this series. And I thought the Clippers had to get at least one of those two games, and they didn't, to win, to beat the Suns in this series, and the Clippers didn't do that. And then I don't trust Milwaukee. I've been following this for 3 years. I've been watching Milwaukee for 3 years. They do the oddest, most bizarre things. Me, would say dumb. When people are just jacking up threes every few games, they just, not even sometimes back-to-back games. I don't trust the Bucks. I have to see them win it. Atlanta should have won that game last night. Atlanta should be up 2-1. And I'm not hearing that Atlanta can't. Tony, my partner in crime says, when they lost game one, he goes, they're not losing another game. Milwaukee's going to sweep. I know Charles. So two of the people I'm closest to in life when talking about sports believe Atlanta was not going to win another game. I don't believe that because I don't trust the Milwaukee Bucks. There's too many bizarre things over the last few seasons, and particularly this postseason. And the Clippers, Rich, they're tough. They're tough-minded. They're tough physically. They're not better without Kawhi. Nobody's going to say that. They're not as good without Kawhi, but they're tough. They are. And so I don't know. I think the Suns will win tonight, but I'm not loading it up. I think the Suns, let's put it this way. I believe the Suns will win this series. Am I ruling out further drama? No, I'm not. I think they'll win the series. I think they'll win tonight. But this is going to be – it was an alley fight the other night. That was the 1980s basketball game that broke out.
Yeah.
And so when you have that kind of thing and the other team is willing to initiate and engage in that, I don't know. I think there's more drama to be seen. Maybe it'll just be in a close Suns win tonight. It can be that way too.
Well, I guess
I'm not counting it up.
I guess the thing that's most jarring about the Bucks is, can you name me another team where the clear star of the team, the MVP of a league, twice in a row, isn't the closer of the team?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's rare. I'd have to examine every single championship team.
Right.
I was trying to figure out, was it Kenny Smith and not Akeem? Was it? So there's some of that. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it was Ginobili on those Spurs teams.
Right.
And early, it wasn't necessarily David Robinson was a star early, and then it became Duncan, and then sometimes it was Ginobili. So it floated, and those are 4 Hall of Famers on that team, obviously. It's rare. It's rare, Rich, to your point. And in this case, it can't be, because you can't have a guy going 4 for, what was he last night, 4 for 10?
Yeah, right.
Foul shooting?
It's crazy.
So, it can't be. And here's the other reason. Look, I'm sure that how do you have a team that you have a guy like Bobby Portis, who's 6'10", who has been in the league for, 7 years, something like that, 7 and you don't even play him for 3 straight games in a series, and you're playing against Kevin Durant? How do you, if you're Budenholzer, how do you not play him at all, not 1 second? You're looking for long, tall, athletic, experienced bodies to even help out, even if it's to foul Kevin Durant, even if it's to get in his way accidentally, and you don't play him for 3 games after he's helped you sweep the first series. I don't understand anything that Milwaukee does or anything he as a coach has. I don't understand anything they do. And so my reaction, I'm not going to say they're bad at it. I'm not. They're not bad at it. They're capable of winning a championship. I don't understand what the hell they're doing most nights.
Michael Wilbon here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's your viewpoint of Ben Simmons' viability as a Sixer moving forward? What do you think?
I don't see it, and I don't wish it on him.
Right.
And I'm conflicted here, Rich. I mean, Doc Rivers is a friend, not a friend. I mean, one of my good friends. All right, and I'm biased. I am biased toward Doc Rivers in every episode of these things, going back more years than I care to admit. And when I joke with him, I'm not joking. People say, how long have you known Doc? I say, well, I've known Doc a lot longer because he had no reason to know who I was on any playground or pickup court ever in life. I knew who he was. And so I root for Doc, right? I don't wish for that on Doc Rivers. Ben Simmons is a talent. I had to deal with my own 13-year-old wise guy son who's plays point guard, and he loves basketball more than he loves his own father. And he came to me about 6 weeks ago and he said, "Dad, Ben Simmons is a liability." And I said, shut up and go to your room without dinner. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. What were you going to you want to play basketball? That's your hot take? Dad, Ben Simmons is a liability. This went on for weeks at my house. And I had to go to him last week and say, okay, you can come out of your room. Because just look, I joke, but the story is real. I say about my son saying that and my reaction initially to him. But Rich, Ben Simmons, how can you? He needs a change of scenery.
I agree.
He needs a change.
I agree.
And I think there are places where he can have that change, and somebody's got to impress upon him. I picked out Golden State as an example, just as an example. I'm not trying to do the Warriors bidding and Bob Myers bidding and Steve Kerr's bidding, but that's a place where it seems to me that the roster, the guys on the roster, between the combination of just intellect, basketball intellect, tough love, soft love, whatever you want to call it, having a combination of, people that you know are in that organization, that might be a place where he could prosper relatively quickly again. But I don't see it. In Philly, of all places, Philly, I would even wish that on Ben, who seems to be just a nice guy. I mean, I've met him a couple of times. I haven't had a ton of exposure to him privately, but I just don't wish that on him. And I wish him to get his career redirected in the way that we knew it already was.
Well, I don't know if this is apples and oranges because, Cam spent many, a couple more years in Carolina, but I don't think it was the same the minute that in Super Bowl 50, the ball was on the ground and he kind of flinched at the game was kind of over anyway. Denver was going to win that Super Bowl. But and then his reaction to the media afterwards, he wasn't the same quarterback there. I mean, he did have half a season before he got hurt. I don't know if it's apples and oranges, but Simmons passing up that dunk and passing it off. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. I think his was more psychological than, but I could be wrong. It's an interesting analogy you raised because I hadn't thought of that play in years. I by that point, I thought that even though that was a few years ago, he'd been put through so much punishment. The flinch was it was physical more than
maybe psychological.
It was like what is good. What is going to come when you get in that position
with Von Miller
position that he was in,
right?
Yeah, and who I don't even remember who else was in the potential scrum coming at him. But Ben's ain't physical. I mean, it's psychological. I mean, we're all playing, psychology 101, armchair quarterback. Okay, fine. But when you don't dunk the ball because you're worried about being fouled by Trae Young, then you don't want to be fouled. This is not even open for debate. You don't want to be fouled in that moment because you don't want to have to go to the free throw line. And so there's so many things there. Can he be helped and could it work in Philly? Yes. I'm not saying it cannot work in Philadelphia. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't wish that recovery on him in Philadelphia. I don't. I mean, what you know what, Rich.
No, I know.
You know what that's like in that town.
Of course, especially since even if he does stay there and have a terrific regular season, all it takes is one moment like that in his first playoff game, and it's all back to square one, like right there.
I don't wish it on him. I don't wish it on Doc. I just think that there can be a parting of the ways there. Philadelphia, the Sixers can get on with what they're trying to do, which is win a championship, and Ben Simmons can get on with his career. I just think that now we look for so many things to be, hot takes and remedies through, I don't believe in it. I just think he needs a fresh start.
Well, I appreciate the call, Michael. Like in terms of these playoffs, it's been so much fun to watch, and seeing the fans back in the building has been terrific. And my favorite shot of the playoffs so far was caught by, I guess, a fan in the stands in Phoenix, just taking the camera. Fans are going crazy to the right and to the left. There's you and Stephen A. I think Stephen A. had like a cup of coffee or something like that, or you had the coffee. And I know there's no cheering in the press box or anything, but your jaws were just like hitting the floor. I love that. That was phenomenal.
Oh my God.
That was phenomenal on the Valley.
It just tonight is going to be so interesting there, Rich. But that was you can't. I mean, I was screaming at Stephen A. in the moments leading up to the play,
right
before the inbounds, during the interminable timeouts that came in that game.
That's right.
That made 90 seconds take 33 minutes. Mm-hmm. I was screaming at Stephen A. Ayton to the rim. It's Ayton to the rim, and he was saying, "No, you can still go to Booker." I'm like, I'd be happy to go to Booker with a full, 2 seconds left, with Ayton to the rim, Ayton to the rim. I'm screaming it. It doesn't mean I think it's going to actually work and win the game. It's just what you're sitting there drawing it up like you're talking to, like you and I are now. This could have been you and me on a text chain or on the phone.
Right.
and I'm screaming Ayton to the rim. And it's just so shocking to have it happen in that building in that way and that noise in that way. It wasn't a West Coast building in that moment. I mean, people can act if they want, like all the buildings sound loud at the end. They don't. Madison Square Garden, Boston, Philly, Chicago, Detroit, they don't sound the same as L.A. and Phoenix. They don't. They sound exponentially louder and more desperate and more frantic. And they're not cheers, they're screams in those buildings. And that's how Phoenix sounded in this absence of, championship or even playoff basketball.
We're showing the shot right there. We just showed the shot right there. There's still the YouTube. So did you at least, before I let you go, did you at least turn to Steven and go, I told you? Did you give him I told you so?
He said it actually. We immediately went on the air, Rich. And I don't know if we were on with Scott Van Pelt first or we were on. No, I guess we were on the LA Sports Center first with Stan. And Stephen A. said, I just had Wilbon screaming in my ear. I'm almost deaf now, Ayton to the rim, which I did. I got that part right, but
I love it.
The rest of it is like, oh, my goodness, what else can happen? That's what I'm saying, Rich. Don't rule out drama tonight.
Okay.
I just think there's something left in this alley fight of a series that we're going to tomorrow be reacting to. I don't even know. I'm not even going to have a prediction tonight. I don't know. I just think there's more drama tonight.
I'll be tuned in tonight, Michael. Thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Always.
I appreciate it.
Please, I cherish this. I really do. Thanks for the call, Michael. That's
all right, do well.
You bet. You too. That's Michael Wilbon, everybody. The real Mike Wilbon on Twitter. He's a must follow. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.